but they will be probably by the end of August. And I did have the city make a big highlighted thing on the webpage saying, the signs are not up yet, but you could do the tour if you want. So just trying to make that real clear, because we don't want people to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that, we have this display at the chamber, that's what's happening with all of that. And then also, I did a presentation for Rotary on this project. So I showed them the video, and I brought the foam board maps in and talked to them about what's coming next and their participation in helping to do the finish work, et cetera, et cetera. So they were very excited about that. People were fascinated. Also told them I would do another presentation in November that's more detailed, like the detailed history of each site. Because, you know, the video was like...
Yes, an overview.
Just as quick as humanly possible.
Well, it's because we had a time limit at City Council.
Yeah.
So, so I'm planning on also doing that. And as soon as we get the updates from Peter on what I just sent him, plus if anyone else has anything on this commission or anyone listening in the public, if you've seen it, you want to weigh in, now's your chance, because I'll tell him as soon as these are made to go ahead and we'll print. And I think that's all.
Okay. So I would like to propose that we each take a look at Mary Ann's laydown, because you know how I think I like us during a work session to kind of hash stuff out, so that when we're in the regular meeting we can make...
Vote.
Yeah.
No, we have two here.
Okay, so what, the walking tour map is this.
So I have...
Do you have a copy?
Here's what I... So...
I guess it's the same thing, it's just mine's printed mini.
So this is what I printed out. Of course, this is by 11 by 14, or 8 by 14. Okay?
That's how it should be.
So
That's the correct size.
yeah. So this is side 1, this is side 2.
Right, this is
And then this,
additional information.
yes, yes.
So how are you putting it out? How are you putting those both out?
They don't.
Do they?
So, I'll tell you,
Okay.
when I first gave Peter all the information, there was too much, as I told you
Yes.
before.
Yes.
The only way we could put them all together was have a 2-page pamphlet and all this stuff, and I just said, no, that's too much, we're not gonna be stapling maps together.
Yes.
So what we decided to do was to make it all on one.
Okay.
And I simplified everything.
Okay.
This additional information, because it was already created, I said, why don't you just let me have that, I'll put it on the website.
Oh, perfect.
That way, if somebody is like, they're walking around with the map, either on paper or with their phone, and they want additional information,
Yes.
all they have to do is look with their phone and they can see all the sites more.
With more detail.
So this doesn't
Great
get
idea.
printed, but this is up there.
Yeah, great idea, Commissioner Memoir.
Yeah, because
We have so much information. Yeah,
we didn't want to waste it.
right.
Yeah.
We spent hours doing that.
Yeah.
Months doing that.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
All right. So can we quietly, except for, you know, as we find an issue, review this document, please?
Right now?
Right now.
You can't even probably, you probably
Well,
see
I
it in
actually
your
can't
sleep.
see it without my reading glasses anyway, so.
Yeah, no, it's pretty small.
You probably can't, I would, you probably see it in your sleep. You don't even have to, have it in front of you.
That's why
I don't
Carol's eagle eye came in really handy, because I'm like, I can't see that anymore, can't see
Yeah,
that,
I
can't
mean,
see
you have
that.
to, you've looked at it so often.
I would just like to let anybody know in the public who's watching that this silence is because we're reviewing the historic walking map for its final review to make sure it is correct. Everybody ready? Okay. Bailey, I saw you writing down a lot of stuff.
That don't mean anything.
Well, it might to us.
So I just have a general question.
Sure.
Where are y'all gonna place these at? The start says the museum, library museum.
Mm-hmm.
So is there going to be, I know there's gonna be the sign at the library,
Mhm.
but is there gonna be any other place that lets them know if they get this, start there, or?
No, they can do it anywhere.
They can start at any place. That's the honorary start,
Okay.
is how we phrased it. But they
Okay.
can pick this up at any point.
Right, and what I discussed with Valerie before is like out there, when you're standing in front of the little garden,
Mm-hmm.
the sign is gonna be at the southeast corner, and there's gonna be like this sign that's related to the library and the museum room. There's also a thank you sign right next to it.
Okay.
And right over there, I think there's some like little box that the maps could go in, but
Okay.
she also said there could be a place inside, kind of like close to where you go in to see the earthquake, maybe at the community room. So, but, like these guys said, it's just the honorary start, because we
Okay.
didn't want to have an order. We
Oh,
wanted
okay,
people
okay,
to go how they wanted, and it's set up so that if a person comes and they don't even know anything about it, and they run across a sign, they go see it. If they see the QR code and they hold their phone up, it just takes them to the website. And on the website, it also says, you can start anywhere you want. It doesn't matter, there's no order.
Okay.
So, because
But
it
here's
would
where
have
you
been
can
too
pick stuff
hard
up.
to do an order. And plus, in the future, if we add more things, then it's all
Right.
messed up.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we
Yeah.
tried to avoid that.
Okay, all right.
And a lot of people, like when they come in off the cruise ships, you know, they get on our little bus, right? And they get off at different points.
Right.
So, you know, being able to do this wherever is gonna work well for them.
Also, the plan is we're gonna print like 5,000 copies, so we're expecting that we're gonna have maps, like at the B&Bs and the hotels
Okay.
and the Chamber of Commerce. There are gonna be a lot of places, not just
Okay,
like the
okay.
library, it's gonna be
Yeah.
places to go
All
and
right.
get it.
Jim? Oh, excuse me. Bailey, was there anything else? I mean, okay, forgive me. Can you please spell your last name?
Saylor, S-A-Y-L-E-R.
That's pretty simple. Okay, Miss Saylor, do you have any other comments?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. And thank you for the question. Commissioner Pemberton.
I just saw a couple of typos, I guess.
Oh, good.
Like what?
On the map itself, number 36, 611 Adams Street, Stand Oil Manager's House. Should be Standard Oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good job.
Good
I
job.
think he was just abbreviating, but if we can fit it, then I think it's
Yeah.
kind of a whole
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like it should fit fine.
Yeah. If it
You
doesn't.
could abbreviate manager, I would think.
Exactly. I was just gonna say that.
MGR,
Yeah.
but spell out the.
Yeah, the business name should be, the historic name should be correct.
Okay.
You could abbreviate manager, that's done all the time.
Good, got it.
And,
On the back of the map, on Urbox, and it's right on this one, but it just says Dorothy Urbach continued the family tradition of leadership, period.
yeah,
In 2020 received an award.
yeah.
Should be in 2020, she received.
She
the-
received, yeah. Well, on this one, it says Dorothy continues the family tradition of leadership and in 2020 received an award.
I think that's much better. Can you make that change
Okay.
on the map
So
too?
that the map or box is the same as.
It's
what says
it's a
here.
single
Yeah.
sentence.
Yeah.
Those
Okay,
were
so
the
she
two things.
continues. And in 20, okay, and in 12, okay, got it. Good job. Anything else, Commissioner Pemberton?
No, that's all I saw.
Yeah, and I think I actually got those same two comments from Carol, so. yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner
So great
Pemberton.
ones. Think like 'em.
See?
How
That-
about you? Do you have any edits?
I didn't see any of
No,
those. so-
I missed them.
Yeah. I was like, okay, it's all
And
good.
it's probably because I have read all this stuff so much too. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
Pass those on.
All right, so how do we feel about moving from the CLG into the historic overlay?
We good?
Okay, good. Okay, so historic overlay. The deal with historic overlay is that it is to be updated every 5 years. This is the 5th year. So we have to actually begin on this historic overlay.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner
When you
Benoit?
When you say historical overlay,
Hello?
every 5 years, isn't, I thought you were talking. I
Oh,
thought
historic
before-
preservation plan is every 5 years. I'm sorry.
Okay, so that has to be updated
Every 5 years. Yeah, forgive me. The Seward Historic Preservation Plan has to be updated every 5 years.
Okay,
This is year number 5. The historic overlay, which is in chapter 8, in the Seward Historic Preservation Plan, is the perfect place to start. Commissioner Ward?
The historic overlay, as far as I was concerned, is this.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what you're talking about there,
Okay.
because
Well,
this has not been developed yet.
okay.
So-
This is
I'm
the
confu-
whole, okay, let me clarify. This is the whole thing off the website.
Right. That's the Seward Preservation
Plan.
2017 plan.
That's correct.
Okay, they're two separate issues. What you're
I know,
talking
I
about.
know, I know.
Yeah, I know, but what you're talking about is something different than the historic design.
Overlay.
Yeah, so.
Yes, I know. But that is chapter 8 in here.
Yes, but
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how you're connecting that we have to do it every 5 years, because this is something that hasn't been done yet.
No. Okay, again, let me clarify. The Seward Historic Preservation Plan has to be updated every 5 years.
Yes.
So,
So that's a project that we
So-
have to do.
yes, so chapter 8 in this plan it deals with things that are related to historic overlay. Or to historic buildings. And from that, we are creating this.
there's, in chapter 8, if we could open that, I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but I know one of the points was we were to work with planning and zoning
Yeah,
and develop, but I don't see that as, I mean, I was looking here at what you put in our packet, and this was.
well, that's completely separate.
Yeah, but because we have that you and Iris were working on, that update every
Yeah,
so often. So
that's another deal.
that's two other things. So what I'm talking about when I'm looking at the historic overlay
Yes,
is in that project has been defined,
Yes.
but it is specifically guidelines, which
Yes.
Iris and I developed, and I'm just going to review because you guys are new. We wrote to the city of Juneau, and we borrowed, well, actually we plagiarized completely with their permission. They said we could use whatever we wanted. We developed a packet that is downtown historic design standards and guidelines, because the problem is modern building codes don't really work for historic buildings. So 2 years ago or so, Iris and I developed this. It kind of got put on hold because of the CLG grant, because that was a ton of work. And also, we've got a lot of support in the community. We have a lot of support from the Community Development Office, Jackie Wild in particular. And so we've had a couple of meetings with planning and zoning, and Jackie and her staff put this together, which was the next step.
Yeah.
So we have the guidelines, but the next step is actually looking at building codes and looking at how you can adapt or make those work for historic buildings. And what we did in this particular set of guidelines, which is all subject to change, is we designated a specific downtown area, which includes Fourth, a lot of the buildings down there, and it's the actual areas in here. And so now that the CLG grant is done,
winding down.
is winding down, yeah. It's time to step up to this. This is kind of a long-term project, and I was on the committee with Iris and Tongi, and now I'm a committee of one.
Yes.
Well, I spent
And you spent a ton of
like
time.
8
Yes.
hours on
Yes.
this document,
Yes.
so. I
Right.
was part of the committee too.
Yeah.
Well,
We
not
are-
officially though, because
Okay.
we already had 3.
The committee portion, that's gonna be discussed during the regular meeting.
I thought it was part of the work session.
We can talk about anything we want during the work
Right.
session, but during the actual meeting, we are also going to address that.
Okay, well, the point being is, we're ready to move forward. We have guidelines. And Mary Ann Didwood, you put a lot of time in this particular. Jackie and her staff put a lot of time. And so I think the next step, and Jackie addressed a lot of the building codes in here. What I'd like to propose is to get with Jackie Wild and sit down and plan a way forward. We've tried a couple of meetings with planning and zoning and they didn't go well.
Right.
So I think we need to kind of take the bit and be very prepared if we have another meeting. And I know that the community development folks are very, very supportive. So I will, before the next meeting, get together with the planning department, and we will come up. I don't know what else needs to happen. So I've basically done everything that I know. We've written the standard, what we'd like to see happen. And maybe it would be nice for you to review these, Jim, Commissioner Pemberton, just because a different set of eyes. But and then these were things, like in this particular defines historic districts, but it talks about how to develop ordinances, how to change the codes. So, and I suspect this is going to be a long-term thing. I suspect there will be public meetings that we will have to run.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm saying is we're ready to move on. I'm ready. I can get with planning and we can develop a plan of action.
Okay.
Maybe from that, develop some committees. I'd like to combine these two. My problem is I don't have a computer, but they said they'd get me one and we can sit here and maybe put them together,
Okay.
paste them together. So it's a single document.
Exactly.
And because,
May I just say, if it's okay?
yeah, sure.
I mean, you're running the show.
No, I'm not.
Commissioner Ward, yeah, you are. This is you. Anyway, I would like to ask, when you meet with Jackie, or, community development, I would like to be a part of
Sure.
that, if that's possible.
I
I
don't
like
see-
the education.
I don't see why not. I will make an appointment with her. But the idea is to combine these two, because this was historic district and possible ways to update code. So that seems to be the next step. So we've got guidelines, but now we need to apply. How is that? We need to look at the current code and see what needs to happen to make the code fit. The problem with modern building codes is they don't necessarily apply to those historic buildings. And so when you're looking at Brown and Hopkins, it's totally different.
Yeah.
So, this is not my area of expertise other than, I'm happy to organize. But at this point, there is no real plan because I don't know what the next step is really, other than building code. So what does that mean? Do we need to meet with the fire chief? Do we need to meet with the safety people? What do we need?
Well,
I had talked at length with the former.
Stefan, right?
Yeah, but there's a new guy and Stefan's gone.
Oh,
And so Stefan, he was very supportive and he really wanted this. He said it would be real helpful and he gave me a long talk about how they did it in Sweden. And, oh yeah, he was incredibly supportive. So, but do I make an appointment? I mean, I ran into him at Brown and Hopkins, so I just chatted with him for like 2 hours. And I don't know the new person, I just know there is one. So my first point of contact will be Jackie. And I think we need to develop a plan. We kind of went into planning and zoning thinking that we had one, but that didn't work. So we need a new, first you don't succeed, try again.
right.
So that's where we are with this. And the thing of it is, I think it's going to end up being a fairly large project that's going to impact businesses, and we have to make sure that there's a lot of good buy-in by the businesses, and it can't, the other thing, the third part of this was we had guidelines, we had building codes, and my next plan, which is where I'm more expert, is to look for grants. So that if we have a granting library, I know I work with KMTA and Jessica Selig, and we tried really hard to get grants for the passenger depot, for Brown and Hopkins, for St. Peter's. St. Peter's needs some serious help.
Yes.
And that's more of an area for me, building code not so much, but to end up with a grant library so that if there's a lot of historic money out there, but I helped Judy at Judy's Cafe, but you have to go through a specific granting process, and I had to assist her, and she ended up getting the grant. But they need help. It's not something that's easy for people who have never done it.
No, it's not even easy for those who have.
Yeah, but I'm saying but there's a lot of historic money out there, and there's a lot of buildings in this town, some pretty significant buildings that need help. So Iris and I did the guidelines. The city planning department and Jackie Wild, I'll give her credit, she put together a lot of research in this document, and these two need to be combined, and then we need to have a plan forward. Do we need to meet with the building code people? Do we need to meet with, I'm sure that Fire Chief Kreitz would be real interested because it's safety.
Yes.
Safety. One of the things that was real interesting to me when I talked to Stefan, and this was just education for me, is I said, why are you pushing Brown and Hopkins to get a sprinkler system? I said, that's not historic, and it's going to be really ugly.
And it could damage.
But what he told me was this: if you, and this would be real important to the Cobbles, if you were going to rent that building as accommodation, which they do, then you have to have fire doors. You have to have certain things in place to do that. If you put in a sprinkler system, you will keep more of the historic trim. So you don't have to have metal doors. You don't have to have, so you can keep more historic, stuff if you have a pretty sprinkler system.
That's
so then,
valuable.
then it made sense because people stay in Brown and Hopkins because they want that history. But if you have a modern metal door, that takes away from that experience. And they're paying money for that. So after I talked with Stefan, it was very clear to me why, by putting that in the building, which will be expensive, but it will protect the building and it will enable whoever owns that building to keep more of the historic building stuff. So those are the kinds of things that we have to look at. And I'm not sure what the next step is, but I'm happy to start developing a plan as long as everybody else. Now, this is going to be a whole lot bigger than me.
Absolutely.
But I think it's something that, you know, we just researched these marvelous historic buildings.
Yes, we did.
And not only the historic buildings, in my opinion, but we talked about people.
Yes.
By doing what we did on that walking tour, we remembered a lot of people that we hadn't talked about in a long time. Who knew about William Sauer?
Yeah.
Who knew about that guy? Who didn't press charges about the fight when his plate glass window got broken? I mean, who knew? Yeah, it was just so cool, the kinds of things that happened. So I want to discuss this because I need people to commit the way we committed to the CLG grant.
Yes.
And I will develop a plan for the next work session or meeting that we have. I will get with Jackie Wild and see what we can put together in terms of what's the next step. Do we need to have a meeting with the building code people? Do we need to hold a public hearing? Do we need to do this? What are the steps we need to do? That's my spiel. I'm done.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Ward. I'd like to ask if Commissioner Benoit could share some comments from her experience in trying to edit the,
Oh, that,
Well, this is just something to think about, because I think when I took that document and I was trying to make it specific to Seward, putting pictures in and different things, taking the references to Juneau out and massaging it, there's a lot of issues in that document electronically from the original document. And I did everything I could to clean it up. I even enlisted a friend who's a computer teacher at ABTEC. And she was like, oh my God, this document has some problems. So all I'm saying is, we did everything we could, but it still has some problems, and I think it had problems before it ever
yeah,
even
yeah,
got
sounds
to
when it came
us.
from Juneau.
it did.
Well,
yeah.
the point
So,
being,
but my point is that I think, like, as, you know, more things that meet needs to be added to that document, plus we're gonna add things like that in. But I think at some point, we probably need to hire somebody that can
Yeah.
fix some of that stuff, so that in the end, the whole thing will come together and eliminate some of those problems.
Well,
I don't know how to do that, because I tried
right.
everything.
Well,
I
my thought was that this will be a rough draft for however long we have it. And then at some point, we have to have it professionally done. If it's something we're going to use, and it's something we're going to submit as a city document, and it's going to have something that people are going to look at. Yeah, this was something Iris and I threw together, and I think it's a good starting point.
Absolutely.
I would never promote this, but these were the kinds of things that we wanted in that we took out of the Juneau document that we felt was applicable to Seward.
Yeah,
And then we tried to put in some Seward pictures to make it attractive.
Sewardish.
Yeah, but the point being is that this was never designed to be a final document. And
Right.
after you looked at it, it was really, we know it's got huge issues.
Yeah.
And we actually had the person who did this professionally from Juneau evidently dated somebody Iris knew him, and so she called him. And we tried to get something we could edit. You know, I mean, she knows everybody. But we tried to get somebody that we could edit, and this, we couldn't. So it will ultimately, in the end, but I don't see why we can't at least use it as
As
best
a
we
working
can.
document.
No, I think we can.
Until we
I'm
get
just
something
saying it's
that's worth
to make it final, if it needs some help, and especially if it gets final and then inserted into the 2017 plan as a chapter or something. You know.
Well, it's really an addendum. It's
Yeah,
really,
it is.
it's like, it's this next phase. I mean,
Yes.
those two, but again, I'm happy to re-up this and get it started, and I will set up a meeting with, to get a plan forward. I don't even know what it would take, and this is one of the reasons we went to planning and zoning, what it takes to get code changed.
Well, for us, it starts here with ordinances, resolutions, and we go to planning and zoning, and, you know, we work with them. If they agree, then it goes to council.
Right.
And yes, there are public, you know, the public has to be involved in
And the
this.
thing of it is, I don't, you know, what do? Do we look at all of the city ordinance? Or, you know,
No.
what is applicable to, because what this talks about, I mean, and this is the other thing, this may need to be reviewed again, but this talks about sidewalks. This talks about windows. But it talks about, I know they talk about sidewalk signs, historic, you know, signs are different, and you have to find, you have to get your, what was it? I can't remember the name, it's been a while since I read it, but you have to define your period. So it's not like we're gonna make downtown look all like Brown and Hopkins.
Right,
That's not the point. The point is to keep what we have.
yes,
And so, you know, we don't have another petrol, we don't take down Brown and Hopkins and put in a petrol marine.
right.
One thing I
Or
was-
the other thing I wanted to say was that space that's available where the old arcade building used to be, that's for sale. And there's no protection. They
Yes.
could put up a parking lot.
That's right.
That could be a tower
Yes.
parking lot. There's no way whoever bought that property could do anything they want with it. There's no protection for downtown. And so those are the kinds of concerns that I've heard from people. But then you have business owners who don't want to be saddled with huge expenses.
Yeah,
And, you know, that if they have to fix the roof, is it going to cost them a whole lot more if they have to put in a certain roof? So those concerns have to be addressed.
yeah, they're justified.
Owners' concerns.
Yeah,
You know, historic buildings are not cheap.
no,
That's why I think a grant program, if we can develop a granting library, and that's where I'd really like to be, and I help
that's an
write.
excellent idea.
I like to help people write grants, and so, you know, we find them, we have them available, we let people know, then we help them write it. I would really be into that.
Well, that's great.
So, but I'm not too big into building code.
And one thing I was thinking maybe I could help with, because, you know, my business is interior design and color
You would be
consulting,
outstanding.
and I can actually measure colors with spectrometer. I was thinking maybe I could, if we have any kind of historical examples, that I could try to help people figure out what color palettes are the best that could actually be historically as accurate as possible. What are some options for people, so when it's time for them to paint their buildings, like what colors could they use using modern paints that actually worked with what they used to do back in the day? Because as you can see now with the historic walking tour, people are already like, oh, I'm going to be on the walking tour, so I'm going to paint and fix the place up. But you should be
Right.
considering what are
Right.
historic colors
Right,
to actually, you know,
yeah,
get the greatest benefit to trying to work with your historic buildings.
yeah,
But people don't have any of that information, so.
right.
That was something I was thinking, oh, maybe I could work on that a
Well,
little bit.
that's
We can
great.
get it into the document.
That's great.
That's a way to help people.
I know there is a business owner downtown who wants to restore his building.
Yeah,
And
under,
yeah, they just, so I think, you know, that's what happens is you start looking at these kinds of areas and, you know, designations, and then people get into it. They buy historic buildings and then they want to restore them. So, and quite frankly, I'm sorry I missed John French, but he had a whole presentation on heritage tourism. Old buildings make money. That was what Stefan said. He said in Sweden, the two villages that went back to history, they're all the time with tourists, jammed all the time. It's been really successful. People are looking for that sort of thing.
I think that once our signs are out there for this historic walking tour, it's gonna be a draw to bring a lot of people into town. And it's gonna be an economic benefit to Seward that people probably don't realize is gonna happen yet,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
it's going to.
yeah,
What do we have over Anchorage? We have history.
Yeah.
yeah, we
have
do.
character. We have a lot of
We have character. Well, we are characters. But-
Yeah.
But the point is, that's what we have.
Yeah,
And it's why people come to Seward.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the whole point of this is I would be really happy to have a plan for, I mean, we can talk about it at the meeting if we want to form committees, but I would be pleased to sit down with Jackie Wild and the community development, and, yes, and develop a plan of action, and perhaps out of that, we can develop some areas of interest. You know, people, committees, we can, like we did with the CLG grant, come up with some areas that people might be interested in working with. And it will mean, at some point, attending planning and zoning meetings, maybe attending PACCAB. I think we have a meeting set up with the PACCAB folks.
Yeah, in October, I think.
They're interested in what we're doing, and it's on the historic overlay. So it may mean some extra work, but I think it's about, you know, heritage tourism, it's about making money for Seward, it's about protecting downtown. So,
Commissioner Pemberton, do you have any comments?
No. No,
do you think you might be interested in building code stuff? I'm a fish out of water with that. You know, if Eric was here, I would recruit him. But the other thing I was going to say, and I'm sorry I interrupted, but
I'm sorry.
can we, is it possible to develop like an ad hoc committee of citizens, people that are interested, to help with this? Because it's going to be a big project.
Yeah. Well, we can do that, right? Because we have a committee and we can have volunteers from the community.
That's what that was the other question I had for this meeting, was that, because there's been a couple of people that have approached me and are interested.
Wonderful.
So, but I guess I feel a little vulnerable with the building code stuff. That I'm gonna go meet with Jackie because she's much more confident.
Well, sure she is. It's her job.
But
So-
that's the next step. I think we have guidelines. I think, you know, there needs to be an application process, you know, for, let's say, how do we want to handle it? If somebody wants to repair a building or change a window in Brown and Hopkins, is there an application process? Do we, I mean, you know,
Yes.
how controlling do we want to be? I mean, there's some really big
Practical,
questions.
yes.
How do you, not only that you have guidelines, but how are we going to implement this?
Yeah.
And make it palatable to business owners?
Yes.
And non-threatening to people who buy historic properties. I own a historic property.
Yes.
Don't come and tell me what I can do.
Plus,
Can't
if
do.
you're like linking it with that grant library and doing things to help people get money so that they can do these things, since actually,
I think
if
that's
you get
key.
the money to do it,
Yes.
that's actually ends up being cheaper for
I think
them
Yes.
than having to
I
pay.
think
Yes.
a grant
It's a
program is
incentive.
key.
I do
think
too.
grant program is key.
I think that's a genius idea.
And there's a lot of historic grants out there. There are national grants, there are state grants. We got a $30,000 grant. There's a lot of grants out there. They just have to be well written. Tongi wrote that how many times?
Two.
Commissioner LeBrecq, he wrote it twice before we got awarded a grant. So it's a very specific thing and it's not easy.
Right.
But I'd be happy to do it. So that's kind of where this stood, you know. Iris and I were leading this, but then I had a personal crisis in my life, and that held us up for some time. And the CLG grant, which had a timeline, held us up. But now that those things are kind of coming full cycle, it's time to resurrect this, and it is part of that 2017 plan. So if you guys are in, then I will take the next step and ask a meeting for Jackie, she, and the community development department. And again, I think her staff did so much work here, and what she really addressed was some of the questions, and maybe I should get this to you and we could get it out to you, but it talked about how do you make application if you're going to change something within the zone? How do you make application if there's going to be a grant? How do you organize it?
Yeah, that's
Is that
pretty
what
key.
she gave us before?
Yep, we all got this at planning and zoning, but we never got to it.
They all ignored it.
Yeah, never got to it. But there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yes, there is.
There's a ton of good stuff in here. So I've been carrying it around, my stack. So I will put my stack out and I will make an appointment and I will let you know.
But I think Jackie is like the perfect person to know.
She's
What
real
we can
supportive.
do
She's
and what
real
we can't
supportive.
Yeah.
and how to kind of pathway.
Who to talk to, what we need to do next, and I think we need a plan. And if you guys are in, then I will start working on the plan so that we have something now next to make a decision on. Like right now, we don't really have anything to make a decision on, but if you guys are willing, I will step up to the plate and bring something to the next meeting.
So just a reminder, if we're forming a committee right now, we need to
No,
do
we're not
that in the
forming a
meeting.
No, we're not, no,
Okay.
this is discussion.
Okay.
So,
We may form a
I-
committee next time.
yeah, so Commissioner Pemberton, more than likely, since this meeting is going to be with Ms. Wild, it's gonna be Monday through Friday during business hours. You're probably not gonna be available for that,
Probably not.
so could I have your place?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Thank you. I really would like to be exposed to, because I want to learn.
All right. Well, I'll set that up.
And if possible, after 3 would be great. Because of my job, although I'm off on Fridays.
Okay. No, I will call Ms. Wild and I will set that up, and hopefully it'll be after 3, except for on Fridays. Unfortunately, I'm available all the time. That's what happens when you're retired. But I think I'm ready to move forward, but I needed the commitment because
Yeah,
it's been rough.
it's not a one-man show.
But, I worry. And you see all the crowds downtown, they're all down there.
Yeah.
So
Thank you,
And
Commissioner Ward.
I think we need to keep thorns. If somebody took down that neon sign, I'd be so upset.
It's historical.
It's Seward, so it doesn't.
Just because it doesn't go to the first 50 years does
Yeah,
not mean
that's right.
that it's exclusive.
What I told-
We now are working on the next 50.
What I told people is this: we're not making Disneyland. It's not Disneyland. This is keeping what's Seward, what we know and love. So anyway, all right. I will get with her, and I'll try to set something up. I'll see if she's got a couple of dates, and then we'll throw them out there and see what happens.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Ward.
Yep.
Does anybody else have anything?
And everybody looks panicked.
All right.
I have a question. I was curious, like in this packet, there was that RFP from Juno that was as an example.
Yeah.
And so, I guess when I saw that, I thought that was like an example of something we could use if we were going to ask a contractor to go out and do some of this research and do something like they did. So,
It's
is
an
that-
idea.
Is that like, why was that in the packet? Is
Well, it
that
was in there,
something
first
you
of all,
wanted to do?
I'm the chair. And so when I receive something from the public, it has to be a part of our public
Okay.
meeting. Okay,
Gotcha.
so that's point 1. Point 2, Doreen Lorenz owns property here. So she has a vested interest, in Seward. And, so she sends, stuff and,
Okay, so
Yeah.
that came from citizen as an idea of something.
Yes.
As an idea.
If
Yeah.
we were gonna put that out
yes,
and contract it out to do
Yes.
that work
Yeah.
in relation to this.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's in the regular meeting packet because, I thought we'd go over it then.
Gotcha.
But
I
we're
was just trying
open.
to understand how it tied to this.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, Juno is significantly ahead of us.
Absolutely. Well,
They have a
come on,
really-
give us a break,
Well,
It's a lot bigger.
and they've got a beautiful, they've got quite a few Art Deco buildings, and it's pretty
Yeah.
nice. That's why we stole it, lock, stock, and barrel. They were happy. They gave us their permission, and they were more than happy to do it. And they're real encouraging. So if we have any questions or problems, we can call Juno, the historic folks in Juno. They're happy to help. So, but I will come up. I will bring a timeline, a plan, something that makes sense to the next meeting. We've got the founders happening, so September's probably a good time.
Yeah.
September's probably a good time too. And we've got the signs, so we don't need anything more on our plate this month. But I'm real happy to sit with Ms. Wild and you and see what we can put together as a way forward. And I suspect at some point we'll be back at planning and zoning, but I see public meetings, I see meetings with, the building code people. We went, I want to make sure that they're happy, because they're the ones that have to enforce it, and how do we want to implement it? Implementation is a big question for me.
Yes, well, yeah,
Yeah, so that's the next, we've got guidelines, the next step is implementation, and how do we want to do it? The grant stuff, I would be able to probably pull together pretty quickly.
that is super. That's a really, really wonderful.
Well, there's
Wonderful.
just too much historic, and after I work with Judy, once you get a template, once you have a template and you do these grants over and over, it becomes so much easier. So there's money out there, and I'd like to get it into this town for those buildings.
Okay, do we have anything else?
Done. Nope.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:25.
Adjourning the work session.
Adjourning work session. And we'll take a short break.
And we start at 7:30 for the
Do
next
you
one?
need some time to run over?
They're still not done.
Okay,
Is that right, 7:30 is the one of the next one?
well,
Yeah.
10
So-
minutes
so
maybe? I don't know, I'm gonna go use the ladies' room.
So what I wanted was a